Give me a second. All right, so I was just cycling through my notifications, and this popped up on my list. Is Jalen Ramsey once again running his mouth about how much money the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to have to pay him to keep him around? Now, one thing I have to say about this situation is that this dude is talking way too much. Okay, he's at one of those positions. It's like maybe three or four positions on the NFL team that is expendable. Those positions are wide receiver, running back. I'll even throw like fullback, maybe kicker. But nowadays, it's really hard to find a good kicker. So you know what? I'm gonna exclude kicker, and then defensive back comes into there. Because if you look at the cornerbacks, some of the best cornerbacks in the NFL, some of them just come out of nowhere, man. Like Josh Norman. I don't even believe Josh Norman was drafted, and no one knew who he was. He went under the radar for years in Carolina, until he had that one All-Pro season where they went to the Super Bowl and he balled out. He was one of the best corners in the NFL. What happened? I mean, bam, he just blew up. That was it. I mean, he wasn't a first-round pick like Jalen Ramsey. And another person I'm pretty sure is at the top of everybody's mind of either either late draft pick or undrafted is Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman was a wide receiver coming out of college for Stanford. Wide receiver. Can't stress that enough. He was a wide receiver. Converted to cornerback when he got to the NFL. 2, maybe 3 years later, he was one of the best corners, one of the best shutdown corners in the NFL. So cornerback is very expendable, especially if you could find... See, because people get it messed up with this whole draft process. They think the higher you pick a player, the better the player is. No. Sometimes it doesn't matter how high you pick a player, but how diligent you are in researching every player that comes out of the draft. And I'm not saying you don't have to ask some personal questions like, are you gay? Are your parents on drugs? Did you ever have a drug history? Like, I get it. I get why you ask those questions, but those are not the kind of questions you need to ask questions about that really test a person's character, their drive, how bad they want it, and how for the team they're going to be. And Jalen Ramsey does not strike me as a team guy. He strikes me as a ridiculously talented player who has an overinflated opinion of himself. Coming off of this last season, if this was 2 years ago when Jalen Ramsey was one of the best shutdown corners in the NFL, I wouldn't, have as much of a problem. I would still have a problem with him making it public, but I wouldn't have as much of a problem with what he's saying. But, bro, you came off of a year where your team was terrible and you were terrible. It's not like you played good and then everybody else was just terrible around you. Everybody played terrible. So what gives you the right, before the season even starts, to jump on camera and tell a team, look, you're going to have to pay me an absurd amount of money, and it is what it is. You know what that makes? If I'm the Jacksonville Jaguars and this kid keeps talking about this contract shit, you know what I'm looking to do? Trade him for compensation. Plug another fucking cornerback in there. I may not get Jalen Ramsey production, but trust me, we won't be seriously lacking. Not with the way you played last year. It's not like you were an All-Pro last year and everybody else was just terrible. It's not like that. No, everybody played bad, including you. So right now, he needs to tread carefully, and he's not, because he's super sassy and he's super confident. And honestly, it is borderline. It's kind of borderlining arrogance at this point. But I'm gonna play a little bit of this video, man, just so we could get a look at this kid's, just this kid's personality, man, because he has some serious narcissistic tendencies, man. on the level of a Richard Sherman.
Right. Next year, especially after our ball, they're gonna come to me. Hey, you know what? Hey, we wanna holler at you. That number gonna be so ungodly.
Now he's saying that when he balls out this upcoming season, he doesn't even. We haven't even played 1, 2, 3 games yet, and already he's estimating that he's gonna ball out ungodly. So that number's gonna have to be ungodly. Really? No, no. Teams have gotten better. Honestly, I question if the Jacksonville Jaguars have really improved much. I mean, yeah, they got Nick Foles, and I'm super high on Nick Foles. I'm only high on Nick Foles when he's in Philadelphia and he's a backup quarterback, because that's the only time you'll see Nick Foles actually play like a serviceable quarterback in the NFL. He had the first time he started was years ago in Philadelphia behind Michael Vick. When he got into the game, this dude was setting records, man. Like this kid was crazy. And then when he left them and he signed a contract in free agency, Nick Foles was, I mean, based on what they were paying him, he was just laughable with his play for years until he came back to Philadelphia when Doug Peterson, during the Doug Peterson era, and he was back to being a backup god, man. Like, I don't know, man. Nick Foles' history as starting quarterback is not so great, but yeah, man. Like, bro, you gotta play first, and then you can start talking about numbers.
That number gonna be so ungodly. They gonna just look. They're gonna have a little bit. They're gonna have a little bit for me. That's all I need to know. They gonna say, oh, we can't get a little discount, 20% off.
It's very easy for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I'm not saying they're going to do it. They're probably going to pay him whatever ridiculous amount of money he wants them to pay him. But it's very easy for the Jaguars to trade this guy for some picks, a possible player, to a team that is ready to win a championship, that is like one defensive back away from being a real contender. Like, I'm gonna let a little bit more of this play, but I'm gonna think of a team that can really make an offer to the Jacksonville Jaguars for Jalen Ramsey. Like, it's very easy for them, and Tom Coughlin does not strike me as a man who takes lightly to this kind of boisterous attitude on social media talking about your contract. So let's listen.
Last year, I'm gonna tell them last year y'all could got that discount. Right. This year, right. I need all that. Last year was a bad season for us, Anybody, really anybody could have got a discount. They could have got a discount this year, man. Still a little sample though. So you saying it's up this year?
All right, so that's about it, man. Because he just was running his mouth about his contract. But bro, it's way too early. You're coming off of a very, very bad season, and you need to play first before you can start talking about numbers. Because if Jalen Ramsey has another down year, now we're talking about him as one of the most overrated cornerbacks in the NFL. And I sat here for the last 10, 15 seconds thinking about teams that could possibly trade for him that would turn him into serious threats for a Super Bowl. And there's only a few teams that I could think of that really need cornerback help. Off the top of my head, this is just off the top of my head for like 10 seconds. The Dallas Cowboys, I mean, you pair them up with Byron Jones, whoever they have at safety, Azawuki, I can't remember the kid's name, but you put him on Dallas, man, Dallas becomes an instant playoff threat. Then that's if he can play consistently. Another team is the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers have had defensive back issues for years. Since Troy Polamalu retired, they've had defensive back issues where they just never had a solid defensive backfield. And the last time they won a Super Bowl, they had Troy Polamalu. Polamalu was crucial on that defense. So they need defensive back help if they're going to get back to that top tier Pittsburgh, when Pittsburgh won their Super Bowls, defense was a must. It was very important to play defense. And since they haven't had the same defensive personnel of the same caliber as before, they haven't really been contenders on that level yet. But another team, and this is the most important team, and I'm pretty sure this is at the top of everybody's head when they think about potential trade destinations for Jalen Ramsey, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs. They had massive issues with their secondary last year. If they had even a remotely good good secondary last year, they would have got to the Super Bowl. If their defensive backs could have made a few more stops, they could have got to the fucking Super Bowl. That's how important defensive. Like Brady was just passing all over him. He did it twice last year, where he just exploited the defense. So those are the three teams that I can think off the top of my head that could use a guy like Jalen Ramsey: Dallas, Pittsburgh, and Kansas City. That would turn them into instant playoff threats, and I'm pretty sure they'll be willing to give up a lot for him. Not too much. Because coming off of last year, that was very alarming for the Jacksonville Jaguars, because there was a lot of people that had them pegged as championship favorites, and then they just came out and laid a fucking egg all year. But yeah, man, this kid just needs to shut his mouth, play, and then let his game do the talking. And Darrelle Revis is one of those guys who let his game do the talking. You rarely saw Darrelle Revis in the media talking about, I'm the best, and I'm just going to dominate everybody, and then this team is going to have to pay me a ridiculous amount of money to fucking be here. No, he just went out there, he shut teams down, and he played mercenary for a few years. Even got a Super Bowl out of it. So this kid just needs to be quiet right now, because you're really on thin ice right now, and I'm pretty sure Tom Coughlin is looking at this shit. I find it hard. I remember Tom Coughlin as a head coach, and I find it hard for him to see this shit and not feel like, yeah, we need to do something about this, because this is crazy. Like, this dude is on fucking Instagram Live fucking running his mouth about his contract and talking about the money that he's going to demand. Bro, that's a good way to get your ass kicked out of town. All right.